Sean's my frenemy.
Yes. So, anyways, you all welcome. This is the next campaign that we first started with this group in this setting. We actually started with a bunch of other stuff. We actually started with Adventures in Middle Earth. I don't know if you two remember that, but that preceded all this other nonsense we've done. But since then, we've had 2 Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition campaigns in this setting. And this is the third, and very, very much not anything like what has come before it. And that's what I want to talk about. I want to approach this from 2 directions. The first thing is approaching it from as a group, here's what I think you can expect. And then as I know you as how we've played together in games, I'll try to offer for the OSR crowd, here's what I think you could see that would be different. For the 5e people, here's what I think you'll see is different. And then with that, the key is this is very, very open-ended. And right off the bat, what I was thinking about today is Joel and Sean, we played in a Monster of the Week campaign. And that was a perfect example of it. When we tried to play D&D in Monster of the Week, it didn't work. And so if you approach this, you guys have that story game experience, if you approach this like that, I think it'll be great. But it's a similar problem, and maybe worse, because it looks kind of like what we had before with the campaign, where you have hit points and armor class and stuff, but in reality, it's nothing like that. And so on one hand, is this something you really want to do? And I'm going to try to present it to you, and you can take a look at it. And then the second part is that way, from this extremely open-ended system, because in Monster of the Week, everybody kind of has to be on the same page, any story game, because there aren't all these rules to try to hold together what's going on. It's just open-ended and collaborative. And I think that's what I hope this will be. So to that end, I want to try to express, what is this? And so we're all on the same page, and when we role play together, we are role playing from that same center of stuff, like imagination. And then we'll just start making characters and start talking about that. Okay, here we go, because I want to get to the characters, hopefully. Everybody knows my social contract. There are things that have changed, though, but I'll get to that later. Coming from just a group point of view, what is this? This game is different from the last one we played, in that it is meant to be real slow burn and chill, and the world's not always at stake. What's really at stake in this is a shift from really heroic high fantasy, you're saving the world type of stuff, to this is your story about what's happening to you in the world in the moment. And it just zooms into that, and that's what it's about. And so to that end, the power level is dialed way down, and you've gone from near gods, or in some cases actual gods, to now you're just slightly above normal people. For the OSR people, it's different than OSR in that this is very, very survivable. This is not, I've dialed the lethality down a lot. And then the other thing I've dialed down from OSR is it's not got a lot of rules. So it's much more like a story game, like a Powered by the Apocalypse game, where it's much more collaborative and open-ended, and we just role play a lot. Let's see. Moving on. Oh, hey, can everybody see the VTT? I got Lane, Caleb, Sean, and Joel. Can you access the VTT?
Yeah, what's the password?
There isn't one. I messaged
It's
you
it.
from
Yeah.
Holly.
I know. I put in Joel, and then I just didn't put in
select
anything.
Joel and hit join.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's saying invalid password provided for Joel.
I'm getting the same thing.
It might be follow me.
Yeah, that's the only.
I didn't have to put anything in.
This will allow
Yeah,
us to
there we
roll
go.
dice
All right,
in the open.
that one worked.
Okay, so there's Joel, there's Steve. That's so weird. It gave you Lane's thing, Steve. I don't know. I'll figure it out. This is why I need to do this, though. In
We
the
had a similar
upper...
thing.
In, what's that?
Weird. My,
We had a similar thing happen last time too.
Yeah.
my
I need
first
to...
name is Steven, so
Oh,
It's
did
actually
you
just
do
telling
that?
you that he's in the Steve lane.
I did not do that, but I am sort of the Steve.
It's Metacrawlers. They know everything. They've done it for us. Never mind. No one D&D jokes. In the top right-hand corner, there's a music note. And if you just, click on that, it might be too loud for you. You can turn that down on your end. And if you have any trouble with it or any trouble with the functionality, let me know. This is the VTT I plan to use, though. It's way more modern than Roll20, and it has a lot more features, but it requires more work. But I only plan to use it as a place to roll dice and have character sheets, and then I only plan to have battle maps for dungeon crawling. Like, only if there's dungeon crawling. And then I'll zoom in and I'll use all the features for dungeon crawling. Dynamic lighting and doors, locked doors and secrets and everything. Anyways, the campaign. Actually, I'm just going to skip ahead. Let's talk about, so I talked about it from like a big point of view, like, all right, pulp fantasy, low powered, we're really open-ended, kind of loose and collaborative and narrative-oriented and role-playing stuff. It's based in Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy, though, with Dungeon Crawl Classics and White Hack and 2 other things put together in it because I wanted it. So that's like the big picture. I'm going to zoom in. So the people that came from the last campaign. Okay. Joel and Sean, I think it's pretty easy. This is nothing like the last campaign. So I think we just have to wash, and this applies to you too, Caleb, just totally remove the expectations from last campaign. It's not got the same goal at all. And I think if you wanted to play the game similarly to what we were playing, it's just going to disappoint. It's just a totally different experience. But for Sean and Joel, I think if you think of it like Monster of the Week, where we're not leaning heavily on the numbers, that's not what the point of it is, and you're not always looking at, you're not trying to interact with the world through the numbers, and instead you just role play, and sometimes we use something from the numbers to give it structure, then I think we got it. So I think the Monster of the Week thing works. Caleb, this is not like the last campaign, as we've already discussed. This is also not like the Dolmenwood campaign. And this is very different than that. And it borrows from the Old School Renaissance, but it is not basic and expert D&D. And I think if we play it like the Dolmenwood campaign, it also will not work. And the closest experience I can think of for how this game would work for what you and I have experienced together would be Jaunty Tides, where it's like a lot of role-playing and not a lot of mechanics and getting real deep into the world. I think that's probably the closest thing. For you two OSR fellows, this is really an OSR game. Anybody outside the OSR would call this OSR. But it is not loyal to old systems at all. I've hacked it up to death. Even further, I'm going to bring it up later. If people want to change the core rule mechanic, it doesn't even matter. And we can look at it. I think it's, have both of you guys played story games like Powered by the Apocalypse or like Fate or something like that?
Recently, we played. What was the one we were in the hotel? It was really surreal.
That's an NSR game. It's like a OSR-y kind of game. But yeah, that Troika.
Yeah.
Yeah. NSR games, and this I would actually call this an NSR game. Sometimes NSR games are so different that they can't really be called. It's not really D&D anymore, right? Like we ended up doing a lot of role playing, and you can't really depend on the mechanics. So this is similar in that way. That game is very lethal. It is very easy to die in Troika. Lane, have you ever played like Powered by the Apocalypse or anything like that?
Not a lot. I mean, I've done a couple of like a session here or there, but it's been a while. But I've read plenty of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that just the thing to keep in mind, like from OSR, if you take the like late OSR mold, things like Dungeon Crawl Classics, and things like I don't know what else, Into the Odd, you know, like not early OSR, not like trying to be the original system, but like modern OSR. It's similar to that, and then I'm turning the lethality way down. Like, so this is not a super lethal game. It is more lethal than 5e, but by my standards, that's still like not lethal at all. Like just a little bit below 5e.
That's not saying much.
I mean, a little bit more than 5e, yeah. But apart from, you know, I hate to even make comparisons to that, but like in that it just doesn't compare really. And I'll show you later, but just so you know. And then the other thing is like, if you come from OSR games where you don't like lots of the modern role playing and lots of the Hickman-esque showmanship and role playing, I intend for there to be a ton of that, like a ton of like role playing. So that distinguishes it from the OSR, and in many other respects, this is just an NSR or an OSR game. Okay, so that's what the game is. Does anybody have any questions about like what the game is? Just the game. Or want to talk about it or anything? Okay, cool. Okay, the campaign. All right, so you're all in the Vale. All of you have played a game or a campaign in the Vale. Lane, you did it, but you did it as West March's games. But they were always like 5e. You were that cool character. It's like one of my favorites, actually, where you had door magic. That was one of your things. Very brief, you know, like a dungeon crawly kind of thing. So probably you have the least amount of miles on your feet in the Vale. Steve, this takes place in the same place that the Zweihander campaign took place in. And like the big bad of the world is now your character. But it's not, that's a whole like evil dark place, like the evil empire to the north. Like this is not, you're not going to be in Damarung, but it's the same place, right? But everybody else is super familiar with the Vale. But all of you are going to be going to a place completely different. And that's like a big hallmark of the Vale, is that it's porous and there's these portals and you can end up in different places and stuff like that. I'm going to plant kind of a seed here. If you can see, I'm sharing my screen, or you can look at the document yourself, that I kind of had like 3 parts to this. I imagine the campaign starting as real linear, becoming semi-linear, where you start with an adventure that we agree on. Like, okay, this is where we're going to start and what we're going to do to begin with. And then from that adventure, it opens up into a complete sandbox where the group decides where they want to go and what their goals are. And I have, for the sandbox portion, and I'll kind of like tell you a bit of my prep, in that I've intentionally not prepped everything. But, where is it? I have a hex map that is about 160 miles by 120 miles of 6-mile hexes. So the whole sandbox would be, and that's a lot. Like in 6 miles alone, you can have really a whole adventure. And so at that point, it would just be whatever you all decide. And I want it to be something where you guys drive it and it's your story and you decide together what you want to do. But the second part is a specific adventure. If you don't want spoilers, the adventures I've stitched together in the sandbox are Blackworm of Brandonsford, Shadow of Tower Silveraxe, and Griff's Vale from Warlock, the British RPG. So the second part, that adventure, is the Black Worm of Brandonsford. So you start there, and you have the initial thing, like we've agreed, all right, we're going to try to solve the problem in this one place first, and then once that happens, then just go from there, kind of like a Bethesda video game, right? Like you kind of start with a premise and then just go wherever you want from there and do whatever you want. I have a question I want to plant a seed on, and then we'll keep moving. But think about it and tell me. I have not prepped the first part of the campaign. So it says first part is linear. It starts in Perrinval City, which is the capital. It's this kingdom, and you can learn about the factions of the world, and you can gain some experience, and you can get levels 1 and 2 there. And then you go on your mission, and you go into the Evening Lands from there. So the first part of the game is not even the Evening Lands. The second part, you begin in the Evening Lands and you go on the adventure. And the third part is you just spread out however you want. You go wherever you want to go. So the second part I already have done. It's ready to go right now. The first part, I actually want to leave open to you all. So, first of all, you can skip it. Why would you skip it? For people that have never been to Perrinval City and haven't played in that part of the setting, maybe you don't care. Maybe it has nothing to do, like, why would you? The rest of the story is going to happen somewhere else. For people who have been to Perrinval City and had that part of the campaign, it's worth noting that this is almost 100 years from the time when your adventures first began in the last campaign. So a lot of people are dead, and things have changed. Now, that might be interesting to you, and you might want to explore that. But maybe not. So one option is, I thought about this. I was bothered by the idea of starting after level 2, and I decided you can start at level 1 with max hit points for both first levels. So if you're a thief, you'll start right off the bat with 8 hit points at level 1. And we start right in Brandonsford, in Medea Res. Bam, right there. We start right away, right in the middle of the Evening Lands. Another option is you start in Perrinval City, where you can kind of explore the setting and what's going on, but then you just move on. So it's like a starting zone. A third option is you start in Perrinval City and you spend some time learning about the setting and factions, and you develop relationships with factions with an adventure in a danger room. A danger room is one where, it's assumed that the people of Perrinval City have the power and magic to bring you back to life and save your life. You might lose other things. There might be other things at stake there, but your character's not going to die in the first 2 levels. And then we have some adventure we agree on together. So think what you'd like to do, and especially if you have an adventure you've always wanted to do. Let's chat about it. And it doesn't have to just be old school. Can't be Wizards of the Coast. I don't like that. But it can be anything else. If there's anything you're like, man, I've always wanted to do this adventure, let's chat about it. But just think about that. So that's the pace of it. It has the framework of an old school Dungeons and Dragons game with a hex map and stuff going on and a big sandbox where you just go do whatever you want. But then tons and tons of role play, where it's role playing centric. And then the goal of this is this is a framework. I have enough content here for probably 1.5 years of gameplay. If you just went and just did everything, it'd probably take 1.5 years to do. So this is my home table, to be clear. So welcome, Lane and Steve. But Caleb, Joel, and Sean, you already know, this is my home table. And I think this is probably yours, or one of your 2 home tables in the case of Joel. So, welcome. And I think a big part of that is, let's do the first adventure, let's get through it, and then see how we feel. What do we want to do from there? So, anyways, I'm not going to go through all this stuff. I sent this out to y'all before. Low fantasy, slower pace, taking the time to do the shenanigans. So in our last campaign, every time you wanted to do a shenanigan, it usually came into conflict with the story point. And I was stressed out. Like, to be honest, I loved our story, I loved our campaign, but it was a mixed bag for me. And a big part of it is it took a lot of prep, and it was really stressful. And I want a game where I don't intend to prep that much. And I plan to just like relax and have fun and see what happens. And that's kind of my goal with this. Any thoughts so far? And then I'm going to go into like, what does the end of the campaign look like? And then I'll stop talking about the campaign. No?
So far, so good. Sounds good to me.
All right. The end of the campaign. I usually have like a win-lose state. In the last campaign, and I actually really enjoyed this. It was amusing to me. In the last campaign, the win-lose state was like, well, if you fail, the world will end. Hope you don't fail. And I would have fun with that. And that's not the case anymore. So what are the stakes and what do you have? Losing, you could die. There's a mechanic where you can lower your attributes, so you might choose to retire your character. Or you might just want to move on to another character. And but you can retire your character. You could become evil. We'll talk about the ethics system. There's only decent people, although some of them might be decent criminals, if that makes sense. So there's 3 alignments in the game. There's neutral, chaos, and law. And you can be either lawful or neutral. And I'm hoping for neutral, because I think that fits the tone of it, and we'll talk about that. But if you become chaotic, meaning evil, then you'll lose your character, which has always been a rule of mine. Another possibility at the end of the campaign is you get lost among the planes of existence. You fall into a fairy plane or in the meat dimension or something like that, and maybe your story continues, but we can't figure it out right now. And that's a possibility. What Caleb calls that the fate worse than death in the games. So that's possible.
You just randomly came up with meat dimension right now, right? Like that's not a long-standing thing.
That's in here.
Oh, we fought a battle in the meat dimension.
What?
Really, you got it. It's like, have you been playing in my games and I didn't realize it? Because I had a whole thing in my ongoing game with the whole meat and flesh dimension.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyways, or the bad guys win and they kill everybody, which is also just dying. So that there are bad guys and they are bad. So like eventually they will keep kind of pushing you until you respond. You know, that will happen. So what happens if you die or whatever? There's a system. I don't know how to pronounce this. How do you pronounce that? Marquue. Is it Mark?
Mark.
Thank you, sir. Mark. Okay. So, everybody has this mark of authority from the Kingdom of Parenval, which used to be called an Adventure of Parabor or an Adventure of Parenval. And you had a knife, and that was like your symbol of authority. Now you have this mark, which designates you as kind of like this rogue envoy that represents the Kingdom of Parenval, and you go forth and you try to increase the influence of Parenval in the world. And you're trying to like engineer circumstances, although you might change your mind part of the way through it, and you might say, I'm done with Parenval. And that's totally okay. That's not chaotic. But that designates like, okay, this person died. Let's give the mark to someone new. And it can be someone from the Evening Lands. And how do you win? There are, I think, 4 win states to this game. Basically, around level 10 for most characters. It says after reaching 9th level. This is a dwarf. I just picked one. Dwarves go up to level 12. And then their last class feature goes up to 9th level. I skipped a barbarian. Their last class feature goes up after reaching 8th level. A barbarian can call upon their native people to form a great horde, numbering at least 250 per level above 7th. So if you're level 10, then that's 250 times starting with 7th, I guess, times 4. So that would be like 1,000 barbarian warriors that you can call upon as a horde. You know, that's the end of the game. Now, we'll play that out, like what your ultimate goal is when you get to that point. And this, if we're playing these characters to level 10, that's a long ways from now. Like that'll take a long time to get to level 10. But that's something that as a group, like, that means that once you get up to that level, you're doing estate gameplay, which I have a mechanic for later I'll talk about. But basically, you call out like a big goal you have. Like, we want to defeat this evil sorcerer, and we're going to form an army. And when the winter chill ends in the next season, we're going to march with this army onto that evil necromancer's fortress, and we're going to engage them in war, and we're going to bring an end to him. Or we're going to, you know, we're going to create a wizard tower that borders the plane of air, and it'll be an envoy that meets with experts in magic of air and elemental forces, and we're going to create a research place there. But to do so, we have to clear this area of this foe or whatever. Once we do that, like once, like at that point, that's it. That's the end of the game. You've won D&D at that point. But that represents something on the far end of your gameplay in this campaign. Another option is if you get up to like 10th level and you have these kind of features, you might say, I don't want to be a baron of a land in the Evening Lands or in Perrinval City. I want to do something else. And I see higher level gameplay as two things. One is go into other dimensions and like do multiplanar stuff. And we might do like one adventure and then that's it. And it's like, all right, now you're going on to do other things. Or the Undervale, which is like, oh gosh, you have Veins of the Earth now. I was going to use that. I don't know. I'll figure something else out. But it's going to be like under, what's that thing called? Underdark stuff. With high level monsters and big bad evil things and stuff. And then finally, the last possibility is like we decide to pause the campaign. Like we're like, all right, that was fun, but you know, and I'll talk about my schedule later. But in possibilities, I'm going to go back to work. If I go back to work, all bets are off. So maybe we have an adventure and a 2, and it's like, all right, our schedules, we're having trouble lining them up, and we pause it and we can come back later, or we can reorganize it as a West Marches game or whatever, you know. So those are the 4 win states. I'm not going to go over all the safety concerns because everyone has been in my games, but I will mention 2 new ones. I'm turning it down. Like, the Veil was PG-13, bordering on R, and I would do like Conan-esque combat descriptions. And I'm actually, my goal is to have a cozier, like just easier going game. And I'm going to try to shift it that direction. So it's going to go down to like a PG. And I'm not going to be gross. At least I'll be weird, but I'm not going to be gross about combat. But there will be weird things. And that's this thing here. That basically you have this world that like the mythic overworld is a place of innocence that isn't like our world. It's like, you know, a nice place with nice people. And that has monsters in it. But then underneath that is something really awful. And that will be there. So there's this juxtaposition in the tone where you have like, no, you can trust people. Like, people are not awful. They're not horrible, you know. It's okay to fight monsters, and monsters are monsters. And then underneath that is this like eldritch horror that underlies things in the planes of existence and fairies that don't think the way we do and stuff like that. Okay, I'm done talking about the campaign. I'm going to talk about like the nitty gritty of like when are we meeting and stuff. Does anybody have any questions about like the... I know that like you guys don't, like Lane and Steve, you guys don't know about the Veil. That might be one good reason to identify an adventure site to start in Perrinval City to learn about the world. Or I can just provide you that info, you know, and we can just roll with it. It's not that important. But I know that like, what is the Veil? Like, you guys don't know that much about that yet. The other 3, I know you do. But do you have any questions about the setting? Or anything you want to talk about? Including its content or things you might be concerned about, things you want to see and don't want to see in a game, and that sort of thing. No?
I have a silly setting related question.
Yeah.
What is the Evening Lands?
The Evening Lands, so I was going to talk about that, but let's do it now, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to talk about that once we get to here, and we talk about starting about, all right, who are you, where are you coming from, and why are you here? Actually, I'm going to wait. Is that okay? But don't let me forget. Bring that once I get to this picture, that's when we're going to talk about that. So let me talk about the boring stuff, kind of, scheduling. It turns out like 9 to 11:30 is going to have to be my spot. I did have a range, and I no longer have that range. So, I can move the day, but Tuesday works best for me. If something comes up, what I usually do, somebody says, hey, I got to move the day. Can we do Monday or something? I ask the rest of the group and say, all right, hey, can we do Monday? And if they can't, we don't. If I have to go back to work, I may have to shift the day. And then if it works, you know, and I'll let you guys know. I try to let you all know about that as soon as possible. It'll be 2.5 hours, 9 to 11:30. 11:30, I always come to a hard stop, no matter what. I say, hey, the session's ended. And if anybody needs to go, because you guys have work in the morning, so you don't have to worry about that. And then anything after that is just gravy, and we're just hanging out. The way the game works under the hood is that there is a loop. There's a gameplay loop where you are in sanctuaries, and that forms a really important part of the gameplay. And I've changed the mechanics in such a way that I think you will have to become involved in the sanctuary stuff and in cities in order to succeed. One of the things I'd say about this game and how I tried to design it is the role-playing is tied to the mechanics. They are not separate. So you don't have like a mechanical war game-ish and then role-playing separate from that. And then we like sort of like move back and forth between the two. It's not that. And it's also not a story game in the sense that you have a story and then we use mechanics to push the story. I do have some of those, which I'll mention later. There are mechanics like that. It's primarily what I call diegetic, meaning like you imagine you're in that place, you imagine you're there, and you interact with the environment. And all your interactions are about that. The mechanics I've put in the game are all about role-playing in the world. So, if you role-play, I didn't put this in the book, but I'm going to. If you role-play every time you rest, something that you're doing related to another character, I'll give you free advantage the next day on something. So it's a role-playing mechanic. In Sanctuaries, there's a reputation system, which I'll show you later, and I stole it from Root, if you all have seen the Root RPG. And what it does is it has like this like these chick boxes that move left and right like a video game, and you just do stuff with people, and those particular people will get like chicks over time that will give you a bonus. And as you OSR people know, in order to do well in this types of games, you have to hire mercenaries and hirelings. But unlike our previous OSR games, no one is sitting there in the tavern like, man, I wish somebody had hired me to go carry a torch into like the bowels of the earth to die. That's what I'm here for. Like, there's nobody there sitting there doing that. So it's just like a normal place with its own problems, and you'll have to engage in those problems and get to know those people in order to influence them toward whatever ends you have. But that being said, you don't get XP for that. You get XP for gold and some other things, which I'll talk about later. So ultimately, you have to go to the adventure to get the XP. So you travel through the wilderness, and wilderness, it's just very basic hex crawling from the book. I just use it straight from the book. It's mechanical in nature, simulating the weather, the terrain, how long it takes you to do things, and what you see there. But it's not meant to just be narrative. And then you get to the adventure site, and you try to complete whatever quest you're on or whatever goal you have. Find the treasure, find the stuff, try to survive, get the stuff, get out with it, go back to the sanctuary. And that's the gameplay loop. Like, and then there's probably a fourth element that is like the planes of existence beyond that you can also end up in. Okay, characters. Who are you? What are you doing here? Just like everybody else in the Vale and in every adventure, is every one of you you've come from another world and you've become lost and you fell through like a portal and you ended up in the Vale. And you were lost in the wilderness, and eventually you found like this place called the Kingdom of Perenval, the Perenval City, where you could survive and get by and learn your way in this new world. I have a box here. I'd like to add Moonthorn and Steve, whatever, I don't know the name of your world, but if you guys want a character from your own world, you can do that. And then I would also say another type of character I would love, only if everybody's okay with it, is Joel. I know you like, is it Dungeons and Dads or what's the name of the podcast? You're muted. You gotta flip your thing down.
Yeah, I think it's either Dungeons and Dads or Dungeons and Daddies. It's one of the two.
I think the second one is a different thing.
It's Dungeons and Daddies.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Oh
Dungeons
my.
and Daddies, and it's Dungeons and Daddies, not a BDSM podcast.
Okay. Okay.
That's
So-
what it's called.
I know that like they're like on this road trip with their kids, and then like the kids go off on something, do something else, and then they lose their kids, and then they fall into a different dimension. So there's just these like middle-aged dudes, like soccer dads, who now are suddenly in this medieval world.
It's fantastic.
Right.
I highly recommend it.
So like another option on here right off the bat, 3 more options not listed. So Moonthorn, Steve, whatever your world is, and then a third one would be actually just our world. Like just like you're a dude from Earth, and then you fell through a portal, and now you ended up in this place. I think that's hilarious, but if you feel like that shatters the tone too much and it would be too distracting, that's okay. But anyways, all of you came from somewhere, and it was not here. So that's one of the things. So you come here, and you learn about the Vale and the Kingdom of Perenval, and you integrate into that life there. And because of your talents, you become an adventurer of Perenval, and you receive this mark that allows you to go and be an envoy and do things for the kingdom. So, what are the Evening Lands? The Evening Lands are your assignment. So there's 5 of you. You all know each other. We'll figure out how later. And you're adventurers of Perenval, and you're given this mark. And your mark is specifically to go through one of the portals in this wizard's tower that's up on the hill of Perenval City. And they're like, all right, we have this portal. It goes to this place. We don't know what's there. We want you to go in, investigate it, and try to unite them back to the Kingdom of Perenval and help them. Because the kingdom, this is not like a morally gray setting, by the way. It's like, these are good people. The Kingdom of Perenval is a good place. And so they want you to go in there and try to help them if needed, because the Kingdom of Perenval has all this like magical technology and power and knowledge. And try to integrate them back into the kingdom. Because the Vale is like this vast 5,000 diameter wide area of a demiplane that has all this wild space and all these like crumbling vestiges of civilization that have been separated from the Vale for a long time, and no one knows what's happened to them. You're going to go find out. So it's like Star Trek. So that's what the Evening Lands are. It's a place that you're going to go into, and you're going to explore and make it your own. Does that answer that question? Mm-hmm. Okay. We use this VTT. I already talked about that. Oh, hey, one other thing about the VTT, and then we'll start making characters. I am trying to move toward a much more low prep, like not fully beer and pretzel, but like halfway there compared to the last campaign. So like a lot of stuff, especially if it's a city, it's just going to be an art page like what I have up on the VTT right now. And then music and weather, ambiance, and then you roll the dice on it. And that's its purpose. So hopefully it provides some sense of immersion, but it's not, I'm no longer doing like top-down battle maps for tokens for exploring cities and city crawl. Like I'm not doing any of that stuff for this campaign. I am doing the full VTT for dungeons though. So when you find an important adventure site with a dungeon, like you can see right here, I've tried to like scratch it out, but that's a dungeon from Black Worm of Brandonsford, I think. And you know, like that is the dungeon, and so you'll get the full benefit of that module. You'll get to like use the VTT and everything. But there's no note keeping. So if you liked Roll20 and you were able to keep track of your stuff, you got to do it old school now. All right. That's the tone, the genre, the setting, the game. I'll talk about the system later. The system, believe it or not, as I've said, is the least important part. Like, it is the thing most open to discussion. It's not that important. Does anybody want to? Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or anything about that kind of stuff, like the setting and everything like that? No? Okay. Character creation. So, I'm flipping it on its head. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. Monster of the Week inspired me in this regard. Like, I learned this from that. And then since then have learned it from things like Beyond the Wall and other games, where I really have come to dislike the pressure as a dungeon master, and I've come to desire the place of being a fellow player where my character is the world, and that's enough. And I am otherwise an impartial referee. That's what I do. So I don't want to do the thing anymore where I become the single point of nexus and filter for individual character concepts that have to be built up, you know, paragraph by paragraph, and then integrated into a larger story where I pull it all together. Honestly, that was really stressful, and I don't want to do that anymore. So instead of having like character concepts and then going from that up to eventually getting to a group concept, we're going to start with a group concept. And then we're going to go in, and I stole this from White Hack. From the group concept, after we decide that together, we'll come up with archetypes that fit the group concept. And the archetypes will provide you a bunch of bonuses. And then the last, and then after that, then we'll decide how you guys know each other, how you're related. And then the last thing to consider is the class. The last consideration. And even then, the class, we'll hack it up to make it whatever we want. We'll make it fit the group concept and the archetype for the group concept. So, I have a few, and I have an opinion. Only because, like, all of us have done some of these. Like, Sean and Caleb, we have done this Errant Knight one. We did that for 9 months with, like, clerics and paladins and stuff, right? And, like, Kyle's character was a knight and all that, and you had all the knight stuff. So I've already done that. How did we do Protectors of the Green? I don't understand my own note. That's kind of cool, but it sort of fits the game concept. And then another one is like all demi-humans, and then we like lightly multi-class it, like you're like a group of dwarves. Dwarves feature heavily in this as an important aspect of the world. Hobbits do too, but I think hobbits would have a hard time in the rest of the world. And then there's like themes down here at the bottom right, okay, that are related, like especially hunting for treasure, goblins, undead hunters, dwarves trying to reclaim their heritage. Those are some themes, kind of foreshadowing stuff to come. But the best one, and what I want to propose, but please tell me, like, let's chat now. Like, what is the group concept? And I've never gotten to do it, is you're just like a bunch of dudes or dudettes or whatever. You're just a bunch of people with like swords and backpacks, and you're crazy and you go in holes. Like that's what that's I think what would be perfect. And it would consist of like just fighters and thieves. And we can figure out the utility parts of it, like, you know, healing and stuff. Don't worry, we can figure that out. Maybe one demi-human, you know, but like having just like people that go and just go on adventures. That's something. What is up with this music, man? That is like way over the top. I don't remember it.
I don't know, it kind of fits. We're talking about adventure, getting all worked up, and it
Holy
just gets more.
smokes, man! That's real big. No, we're not that big. Like, no, these aren't those kind of adventures. These are kind of like, you know.
Is this
I'll just
red wall, basically?
Oh boy. Anyways, so I don't know if that makes sense, but like I wish so mine is like you're out there and you're crazy enough to do dangerous things. You're trying to get money, and you just do shenanigans, and everybody has a neutral alignment. That's like I think what fits the theme best. That being said, please tell me what ideas you have, what excites you, what would you want to do as a group, like the group concept. This is what we're here to do tonight, primarily. Let me get my pencil out. And my bourbon. And I'm all yours. Let's go.
Ooh. Yours.
What do you got?
Woodford Reserve bourbon.
Oh, I love Woodford Reserve.
Love it.
I'm a sissy. I went with American Honey. I don't care, though. I like a girly drink.
You're allowed.
I even put stuff in it. I made it really girly. I don't care, though. I like it.
Bro, people make fun of girly drinks, but girly drinks are like wine and cocktails, and that has some of like the highest ABV. The girls are out here chugging bottles of wine like Kool-Aid.
They're crazy. Crazy.
Walking.
Anyways, all right, group concept.
Teaspoon for the pan.
What do y'all
Cup
think?
for me.
Shh, Caleb.
Caleb,
Yeah.
I have been picked on. I think I'm looking down here at possible campaign themes. Number 5, archaeologists. I think that's neat. I'll start this conversation. Come at me.
So I'm going to skip ahead right away and talk about an archetype, because this fits the archetype feeds into the group concept, right? So this is my favorite archetype, and it's super overpowered, the adventurer. But let's talk for a second about the wise. And it's not generally classically overpowered, and the goal of this game is not to be powerful. That's not necessarily what the goal of it is. But it has something that makes it very, very powerful. The wise would, generally speaking, be a wizard, a magic user. It could also be a druid, perhaps, or an illusionist. But there is an aspect here, and I wouldn't want every character in the game to do this. So it might be like a group of Indiana Joneses, but like one of you maybe does this, or maybe 2 of you, or something. And it's called Esoterra. And what I did was I took something from Monster of the Week. And what happens in Powered by the Apocalypse in narrative games is, rather than the world or the game having the authority, and rather than the dungeon master having the narrative control, there are certain instances where the player has narrative control. And the player says, I do my thing. I have this thing. And they get narrative control. And I don't, and I lose it. And the DM doesn't get it. So Esoterra leans on that kind of thing, where basically you can ask a question about the world, and either your proposed answer must be partially correct, in which case I, the dungeon master, will say yes. I won't tell you if it's partially correct or fully correct, I won't say. But if it's partially correct, I'll just affirm what you've said. Or I must give you a partial truth. And you don't have to do a check for this. And it has to be something functional that will help the party. So whether either I can transfer that in Powered by the Apocalypse and Monster of the Week, this is called providing a forward, like you get a +1 forward. So I'll say, I don't know what it is yet, but like because of your planning and being clever, you get a +1 to the next time you do blank. And so when you identify an Esoterra in the world, you get that. The other thing I'm excited about is every archetype has an XP scheme separately. And for the wise, you get XP, and this has always bugged me. And we always assumed that Dungeons and Dragons, the wizards were like finding the time to like study at night when they weren't doing adventures or something, because they just like randomly learned a bunch of spells, most of which were completely unrelated to one another. When they killed monsters, and it just made no sense to me. It was like the game is separate from the role playing. So instead of killing monsters and hitting story beats to learn spells, the wise learns magical stuff, and that's how they get XP. So like every time you go in a dungeon, if you are doing the archaeology thing and you're like, what are those symbols? What do I know about that? You use the Esoterra feature, and then you add that to your book, like literally make a note of it, and you gain Esoterra. When you collect Esoterra over time, that's how you gain spells. Because you learn the world and you gain magical secrets, and you are a researcher and archaeologist, and you craft spells out of that. An alternative would be a archetype the wise, but a thief. So you don't have any spells except through spell scrolls, but then you would have the Esoterra feature. And you would get XP through gaining Esoterra. Does that make any sense, or is that really weird?
Yes.
Makes sense.
And then like an Esoterra would have like adventurers with them. It's like Indiana Jones, right? Like you'd have people that are your expert, your rangers, and that's what a group of archaeologists would be about. They would like go into ruins and learn things and stuff. And yeah, so that's a pretty good one. That would fit under the adventurer one too. Who else has ideas? These things can be like mixed and matched and molded too. So like, let's chat. Sean, what are you thinking?
I mean, it's really awkward for you to call on me because, as you know, I'm good with pretty much anything. Although ideally, I'd like to do any situation wherein I can be a thief, because I want to do like a non-combat thief.
I have got something for you. I do. And you can indeed be a non-combat thief. I've got a couple of things like that. I think if you want to be a non-combat thief, you should actually be the wise and not an adventurer, and then be a thief. That would be like, yeah. But anyways, I lost my place. Okay. What else? Steve, what do you think?
I really like the idea of the adventurers thing, and the archaeologist thing sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
All right.
Like you got the guy like, oh hey, yeah, we're gonna go search out these mummies, and who's the guy with the sword? Oh, that's for when the mummies come to life again. That's when they become a problem. No, I think we could have fun with that one for sure.
What do you think, Joel?
Well, maybe this is my MOTW coming out. I haven't looked at any of the stats or abilities. I'm just, in terms of what I might enjoy playing narratively, I like the demi-human. Big fan of that. And then, archaeologists, I agree. That's just like that's a safe, in a good way.
It also fits the formula, right? Like, why are you
does.
going into these awful places? And it makes sense.
It does. And referring back to I'm resisting the urge to just play Monster of the Week, as like you said earlier, because I'm looking here and I was like, okay, what would sound fun? Undead hunters, mutant hunters.
Well, I got an idea. Lane, why don't you roll a d12? So we got archaeologists, and maybe this won't work, but I just want to try it.
Yeah, I'm a big
find my
fan of
D12.
archaeologists. treasure hunters might also be fun.
A little
I
bit of
like
column,
all
a
the
little bit of column.
ideas. I like
Treasure
liked your
hunters and
idea.
Archaeologists feel similar though, like Indiana Jones with less guns and fewer Nazis, hopefully.
There's a difference between
Less
it
guns,
belongs in
more
a
Nazis.
and it belongs in my bank.
Right.
Well, I rolled a 2 for that.
So what if you were archaeologists that specialized in the undead? Now this is an example, and that's not like the specific one, but
And
you know, and that's not to say you can't be an archaeologist and do other things. This is a whole campaign. But what if that was like your starting point where you're like, no, we're like a group of experts in the undead, and that's our. Actually, that's pretty damn good. Actually, that fits the.
That's some Hellboy vibes.
And I think that's why I said archaeologist is such a good. That's a fantastic template because the rest of those archaeologists could be all of what we do, but like the rest of those seem to be kind of like the rest of the most of the rest of them seem very specific, and archaeologists can just be a job title. Like your first session can be archaeologists, and then you could start as archaeologist and do most of the rest of these as well. So I'm a big fan. That being said, you know, for those specific reasons, I'm completely fine with even if it's just where we start doing archaeologists, but you know, we can do a whole ass campaign on being archaeologists, and then you know, we can also become the Moon Knight if we want, you know.
So, so let me propose this. Tell me how this sounds. The adventurers, who are archaeologists, their speciality is the undead, like hunting the undead and figuring out its source and stuff. But you do it.
I like that.
Obviously, you do all of it. But.
So my first thought when you were throwing ideas was I like the idea of the guys doing all the dirty, gross stuff that nobody else wants to touch. And I don't know, but I like the archaeologist idea. Here's just an idea of like, you know, monster hunter sort of, but archaeologist, but also just maybe not the best archaeologist starting out. We want to be archaeologists, but we're really just the guys who have to go get fight the nasty monsters and nobody else to deal with, and we're trying to work on.
Or we could be
Archaeologists.
the archaeologists that are so bad that they send us to what is considered like a hopeless dig site.
Yeah.
They sent you to the evening
obviously
lands.
yields nothing, and then like somebody like trips and accidentally like punches through a door to an underground vault, and that's where the undead are.
Yeah.
I think it's a great template.
Just keeps happening.
We keep and we make these amazing discoveries, but it's also just purely through clumsiness and accident.
All right.
Or in Sean's character's case, trying to play pranks and accidentally making fantastic archaeological discoveries.
Yeah.
When you think of like an archaeologist like Indiana Jones as a real archaeologist, he's a terrible archaeologist. He goes in there, everything breaks and gets destroyed in the process.
He breaks a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Everything's just, you know,
Or
by an archaeologist.
Different
He's
way to look at that,
horrible.
though.
Fun though.
But different way to look at that. If everything except what he takes is destroyed, what he takes is that much more valuable.
It's a very capitalistic approach to archaeology, Sean.
I'm just saying, maybe he's not a terrible archaeologist. Maybe he's a greedy one.
maybe it belongs in the museum that pays the most.
Exactly.
This
Oh,
is great.
thanks for your donation. What donation?
Yeah, this would be a great
I think
donation.
archaeologist
No.
is a great template, and if nothing else, we can start there, and then, you know, Ross, as you know from playing narrative campaigns, like you can start out with a great. In my experience, kind of the looser general template you start with these more narrative games, like you get your bones, but don't try to put, you know, muscles and nerves on it.
But
Oh,
it's
yeah,
such
absolutely.
a sexist job title, guys. What about all the archaeologists?
Moving past that. No,
So
I
there are
think-
4 archetypes.
Yeah.
I won't like. I mostly am going to pass over this one. I'm just going to note it out. The last campaign we were in, tons and tons of supernatural stuff with like clerics and holy paladins and connections with gods and stuff, and it was cool, and I liked that. I was not disappointed by that, but I am ready to try to do some other stuff now. Like we have done that. I'm pretty happy with this archetype I made, where I was like, hey, listen, there are like 2 paths here, and it's almost kind of like 5e or AD&D stuff where, you know, you're a conduit of a power, a divine power, and that's not always a good thing. But you can turn the unholy, which I took from Dungeon Crawl Classics, meaning it's not just the undead, it's whatever your god hates. Alternatively, the conduit, so one of you could choose to forgo being an adventurer and lose your combat bonuses and stuff from that. And you could instead, but this will tie the whole group to this, so don't do it unless the whole group wants to do this. Basically, stolen from DCC Linkmar is you can be a conduit who has a supernatural patron. So you could also, Sean, be a thief, and Felsane could be your supernatural patron or the Angel of Vengeance or something. And the way that works is, generally speaking, I'm not going to go like super into specifics. I have my DM screen here for Linkmar though. For patrons, you have a die. You have an extra die. And you can roll that die, and I'm going to use it like how I do Old School Essentials. So you have a narrative result that, if it makes sense, you get the best of that. And if you totally lose the narrative result, like if you don't get that, then you'll get some kind of benefit from your patron die. So I have, like, for example, your patron die might be a 12 eventually, a D12, right? And then you roll your patron die, and if it's for combat, if you roll really low, maybe it helps you a lot. But if it's for helping people and healing, you want to roll really high. And if you roll low or high, then you might get a different result. But what happens is, let's say that you have a D12 and you want to use, and you're facing a whole bandit army, like 50 bandits on the road, and you're surrounded. And you've got one weirdo in the group that they're like, dude, call on the Angel of Vengeance now. Like, ask for her help. Oh my gosh. And so, like, whatever that looks like, you rub a talisman or something and you say, Angel of Vengeance, please help us, or whatever. And then, like, maybe something like a paper crane flies into the hands of the bandit leader, and then unfolds into a missive. And it's basically like proof that they have his family. And he's like, oh, let's go. And then they turn around and leave. And that's if you roll like the best result, right? Alternatively, I have a mechanical benefit. And just like in Old School Essentials, I'll give you the best of either. So if you roll really well, you could get a narrative benefit. If you don't roll that well, you'll at least get your mechanical benefit. So like if you roll a 1 on a D12, you get a +6 to attack. And we'll describe what that looks like, And then what happens is, this one weirdo, and it could be a thief. It doesn't have to be a cleric or a paladin. It could be a thief with a patron, or a fighter with a patron. And that die will go down and diminish and get worse and worse and worse the more you use your patron. And what your patron wants is for you to go visit them. And you go visit your patron, and it's going to be a pain in the butt. And you'll have to go on this journey to go pay homage to your patron. And you visit them, and they're going to say, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. I need you to do some stuff for me. And then that's how you get your die back up, and then you can do powerful stuff with your patron. Okay, that's the only thing about the conduit, is that there's like this alternative path where you could be a warlock. You could be like a weirdo who has a patron. You have the patron die. The adventurer. This is my favorite. I think it fits basically anybody that would even want to play in this game. It is combat centric, but doesn't have to be. So for example, you could also be, instead of a wise thief, you could be an adventurer thief, and you have what's called a deed die or skill die. And I've hacked it down from Dungeon Crawl Classics to be very low fantasy, to where it's not like high flying, super swingy, action oriented fantasy. So basically you get a D3. You get a D3 at level 1. And actually, let's say, Sean, like your concept of having a thief who's an adventurer, you get a D3. And let's say that your D3 is used for your, I don't know, what skills do you want? You said you want a non-combat thief. What would they do?
Basically just like sneaking and stealing
thiefy stuff. I thought you were thinking like
literal thiefy stuff.
Okay.
Less assassin-y, more thiefy.
Okay, because the Thief class also I've modded, and you can use the Lamentations, the Flame Princess rules. So basically, you could also have a Thief who is a master of architecture. And like has like an excellent skill in architecture and knows all about buildings and how they work and everything. Whatever. Okay, so anyways, doesn't matter. You get a D3, and you can... I'll have to figure out how to add this for a D6. Or adjust the math if it's a D100. Whatever. And you pick one skill. And for the whole game, you have that one skill that you're a master of. So if it's sneaking, you get a crap, I can't think of it off the top of my head. What is
Elf?
Thief? Elf. Thief. Okay, so hide in shadows or move silently. Okay, so you also, it's assumed that the thief automatically succeeds unless they're under tremendous stress. That's, first of all, that's how I roll it. But let's say that it is like super difficult, and so you're going to have to rely on your skills. I'll give you the better of either, but you're using hide in shadows, and it's literally like if you could literally hide in someone's shadow. That's how good you are at it. And it says hide in shadows is a D100. So I would add, what is a D3 math? I did it here. The die thief perhaps adds and multiplies by 10. So you still roll a D3, but you multiply it by 10. So I rolled a 1, so I add 10, and then you also roll your D100. Does that make sense? Your hide and shadow skill as a thief is a D100, and you want to roll low, right? Did I get that right, guys? Steve? Yes, because if it's something you're doing, you roll low. Yeah. So you would subtract this. So you roll a D100, and let's say I rolled, I got a 20. So I got a 20, and you want to get under your number. Your number starts with a 10, I think, or something not great. And then I rolled this, and I got 3, so I would subtract 30. So you succeeded. So you're real damn good at something. One thing. Real good. But not everything. You can't add your skill die to everything. You could also add that to a weapon attack. So that would be pretty powerful, right? And then what happens is every level, it will go up the dice chain. D4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth, up to 10. I just made that simple. And then the last thing is, if it lands on the highest value, it'll explode. And not only do you succeed, if you succeed, but you also get some kind of added benefit that's like action oriented, you know. So if you're doing an attack, maybe you not only hit them and do the extra damage, but maybe you also gouge their eye out. Here I am doing Conan-esque combat again. I'll have to think about that. Or maybe you kneecap them and cripple them. Or maybe you disarm them, or whatever it is. And you just make that up. Does that make sense?
I like how you keep saying things like you're getting less Conan-esque, and you're getting more
worse.
Conan-esque.
It's getting worse. The other thing is that adventurers get an increased critical range, and that's regardless of, you know, what you use your die on. So it starts at 19 to 20, and then I just say that it increases by 1 every odd level. I did that wrong there. It should be, goes down to 18 at 3, 17 at 5, and then so on and so forth. So ultimately, it'll take a long time to get to a higher level, and then the game's going to end at level 10, but you'll be really powerful by the time you get to that point. You can also add your luck modifier to 1 action only. So if you have a high luck, and I'll talk about, there's a 7th stat I'm adding to the game. You can add that to a single thing of your choice. And then the way it works is, and this is huge, I think, you have luck in this game, so there's a 7th stat that you can burn. So you roll 3d6, and you know, let's say I got like a 15, right? And I got a 15 in luck, okay? Sometimes I'll call for a luck check, but you can burn that luck down to succeed automatically on checks. So for most characters in the game, when you burn your luck, that's it. Except for the fleeting luck that I could hand out in a single session, your luck's gone. and you're probably not going to get it back unless you're a halfling or unless an adventurer. Adventurers can get their luck back every day if they pass a luck check while they're doing something other than adventuring outside a sanctuary. So if you spend a whole day in a sanctuary, you can roll a luck check and you get 1 luck back. So it's not real fast, but that's really huge. You get a bunch of bonuses to talking to people and money. I will craft a weapon of destiny and place it somewhere in the world. And I'll use the Sentient Weapons Guide from Old School Essentials. So they have like a thing in the back about sentient, crazy, powerful weapons. And this weapon will be unique to you, and it'll be put somewhere out there if you discover it. And then finally, the XP scheme for adventurers is you find gold or treasure. And then the second thing is you have a bad habit or several. And you can gain half of the XP you gained by exercising your bad habit. So if you're a drinker and you get 500 gold pieces from a dungeon and you spend 250 of that on booze and like partying, then you will get 125 XP on top of the 500. But when you do that, I roll on this table to see what happens, what complications might have arisen from your bad habits. So that's adventurers. I think they're well suited for a neutral alignment. And then the wise I already talked about. Although there's other things like the wise, I'm going to say that you can urgently cast. So you have spell slots. It's Old School Essentials. But if you're out of spell slots, you can attempt to make a cast, but it's very hard. And if you fail, something really bad could happen. That's the simple version. Demi-humans. They're just really weird. And you shouldn't play one unless you want to be weird the whole time. And like, only 1 or 2 of you should be a demi-human. And then that is your archetype. No matter what demi-human you are, that's your whole archetype.
Alright, so I think we should be 4 hobgoblins using the wise as ass character cheat.
That'd be a short one, Hobbit Goblin.
Yes. You are one of the people who was kneecapped. That's how that happened.
I called first dibs on demi-human. I'd like to be on record saying that.
All right. Fair enough.
But you said we can have 2, right? So if me and Steve were both demi-humans, that'd be okay.
Steve, what do you want to do? Well, first of all, think about the group concept first. So let's form the group concept. So the first thing is you're all archaeologists. So let's form our archaeologists. So you're going to need either the wise or adventurers. So
I would like to be the wise.
Do you want to be a wise thief?
I do want to be a wise thief. I want to steal magical things, and that's how I will become stronger.
So a fun thing about thieves in OSE is even though you don't get spells, you at 4th level, you can read non-magical texts. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this and make it possible. At 10th level, you can use magic scrolls, so you can use magic. I'm gonna tinker with that to make that. So like, wise thief, Sean. Okay. So archaeologist. Who else wants to be adventurers? That's what we kind of need to form the party around.
I was kind of leaning towards an adventurer thief, but I could go fighter too. But
Totally up to
yeah,
you.
wise thief.
I mean, it does say suggested 2 thieves. That's all I'm saying.
You want to be an adventure thief or a adventure fighter, or there's others too. We could actually figure out the class later. Actually, I'll just put you in adventurer for now, and then
adventurer,
adventurer. All right, Lane, and then now we have come to Shay. So I want to mention Shay. I actually there's a bit of nepotism going on here. Caleb can use a previous character, but you start at level back at level 1 or whatever level we end up starting at. Here's the thing about Shay, though. If you still want to play Shay, I will also say you can change his class. Because maybe he changes. Maybe he's different. But
I've been having some thinking. There's been thinking of it.
Oh dear.
I've been struck by inspiration. For looking through this document you have here, and you have a word in it that attacked me. But before I get to that, so I'm looking at the wise. We got one wise person, and I don't know how wise is excessively wise. But you were talking about the esoterica stuff earlier, and I was like, well, that's sort of weird. This sort of like the player having knowledge, be able to come to them and stuff. And I was looking through the wise page, and down in magic discipline by the bottom of the wise page, it talks about existing disciplines such as foresight. And so I was thinking, hear me out, bad fortune teller, incompetent oracle, able to see the future, but not well enough to start a cult or anything.
that's how you would start. And so what we would do is we would reflavor any spell that might provide any mechanical benefit to something related to foresight and divination. And you could like read the stars, but you don't do well starting out, and then eventually you can get better at it.
I like the idea of extremely unreliable foresight, because foresight's really cool, but it's just like everyone looks at you, oh, do the thing. And it's like,
See,
Yep.
I kind of see you going more of the exactly accurate but totally useless foresight. Hold on, guys, stop! Whoa, oh my god, what? Ah, Joel, you almost stepped in dog shit.
that too. Just like I unpredictability is the vision I have had.
That's
And
fine.
so sometimes it's really useful, and like with Din, just kind of no one takes it seriously because it's like, oh yeah, sure. We've heard this before.
Do you want Shay to become that and continue
I
the story as such? Or do you
I
want
think
to
that
Sorry, go ahead.
yes,
Oh, it's gonna be Shay.
I think that would be interesting.
Sure.
Having Shay get, I don't know, lost in the wilderness or ruined for a little while, get a little bit of a beard.
And he goes a little crazy. I'm
And a
interested
little
to talk
crazy.
about his class because you could be a druid wise whose spell
I'm-
forms
I've delivered unto you my vision, and you understand the system you've created, and I'm willing to let you advise / pick how that works out mechanically.
okay.
But I think leaning into sort of spells is a little more than perhaps the wise thief is.
the only problem I have with Shay with this setting, and I don't see how this can't be changed. I don't see any problem. After everything Shay's gone through, I don't see why this would be a problem. Is Shay was a chicken, and
It was.
every single one of you have to have the ingrained aspect of like, I'm going to go into this crazy place and do a crazy thing. Like that's like a presumption of an enthusiastic level of I'm here to get money and secrets and I'm good at it, or at least I think I'm good at it. So Shay, and I don't see why Shay wouldn't think that after what he's been through. And maybe he's just crazy by now anyway, because he's doing this stuff anyway. Shay it is. Okay, so we have 2 wise, we have a demi-human, we have 1 adventurer. Steve, I need another adventurer. Now what that looks like can vary quite widely. But we can talk about it later. I'm just going to mark you down. I hate to draft you to that, but I do need another adventurer for this type of setup.
All right.
So, lastly, okay, that's it actually for now. So those are archetypes. Let's talk about how you know each other. We're gonna have to do a lot of work on the back end to make things like the failed oracle and stuff like that work. But this is from Whitehack. The way Whitehack works is you don't have like set classes. You have like an archetype and then like it calls it something else. and you make a class out of that. And you and the Dungeon Master make a class together. And that's kind of what we're going to do. All right. So, how do you all know each other? You're friends. And now I return to the previous question, which we now must answer. How do you want to begin your adventure? Of those three options, or if you have another idea, tell me. Do you want to start in Paranval City and do loops up to level 2 in a danger room style in an adventure site, an adventure of your choosing? Or do you want to start in Paranval City but then promptly leave and go to the Evening Lands and start your adventure? Or finally, do you just want to start right in the Evening Lands, in Media Res, and then, you know, basic, yeah. Of those three, what do you want to do? Because that will inform this.
Were you asking someone in particular or the party in general? Sorry.
Both? No, everybody in general, yeah.
I wouldn't mind, just because, just speaking for myself, just because this is a new format for specifically a new format, but even for those of us who have played narrative games, it's been a bit. I wouldn't mind having a buffer at the front of the game where, yeah, we get some chops, we get some skills, but also we just, like, out of character, like us, the players, we get almost a little practice playing narrative type stuff, talking to shop owners, running, finding little girls' cats, doing things like that before we, like, go out and have an adventure. I wouldn't mind, almost like training side missions before we go attack the big bad.
That's exactly what my intent in that was. It's a very open-ended system, so we would just like...
So I wouldn't mind cycling through Paranval City a little bit, sorry, specifically to what you're saying.
I was thinking the same thing. I've been a while since I played in your game in setting, so it'd be nice to get a little
without
time
jumping
to
right into
kind of sink
adventure.
into it.
Plus, we're supposed to know each other. I feel like we should get some history playing as a group to establish that better.
And speaking just for myself, I'm kind of curious what's happened in Paranval these last 100 years. I wouldn't mind seeing the old stomping grounds.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So the big question there is, what adventure do you want to play? I don't have anything prepared for next week. I don't care. I will prepare something because part of this, just like you're saying, I want to get used to how this game will go. I do too. And one of the things I'm going to try to practice is not prepping a lot. So I'm going to see how that goes. To that extent, what I need is an adventure site where you go through a portal in Felsane's Tower, go to the adventure site, and come back. And you go back and forth getting treasure and practicing your skills, and then coming back and interfacing with factions in the city and maybe taking on tasks for them, things they're looking for. And you do that loop where you're in the city and you talk to factions and do things for them, and you go to an adventure site, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that type of adventure site thing. And Lane, hey, Dungeon Crawl Classics, if you got an adventure that you've always wanted ran that would fit that mold, I'm here for it. It could literally be any kind of dungeon, anything, so long as it has enough meat to give us a couple sessions.
Ostrich Farm it is.
Huh?
Ostrich Farm it is.
It could be an ostrich. Watch what you ask for, Sean. You don't think I'll do it? You don't think I'll have a...
I mean, I don't know,
dungeon?
man. I heard
Writing it down.
I heard
Ostrich
somebody in my
dungeon.
house was going to Tucson tomorrow, and I know between here and Tucson there's an ostrich farm, so I just connected
dungeon.
random things. Don't worry about
I'd
it.
rather fight Tiamat than a pack of ostrich.
I think I would too.
That's fair.
Well, there's this little girl who wants us to find her cat, but the cat's through this little portal, so we go. But the cat's actually a Rakshasa, and he is terrified to have to go back to this little girl. What happens from there?
Hey, you know what? I went and I found the little girl's cat, so I've already been there.
Yeah, I think wasn't Felsane part of that too? That was after I hired Kriv, right?
That was Felsane and Kriv. That was the OG. That was like the
Sean,
second
Sean and
session.
Joel are scared of going after cats now.
So
And
adventure.
Shay led us through the
Like,
wrong
isn't that-
portal.
Finding that little girl's cat kicked off 14 months of.
Yeah, and
The
isn't
best
that like
campaign
where
I've
we
ever been a
it
part
ran
of.
into the werewolf and shit
It's-
too?
28
Yeah, it
months
was a pack
actually.
of werewolves, and that was where I made. Didn't I make? I made the whole party piss themselves with a successful intimidation check.
I don't remember being told I pissed myself, but okay.
You did.
So
False.
what adventure ideas? What do you think? What is there anything that you guys have like specifically want? If you have no preference whatsoever and you're like, I just want to start in Pernval City, I just want to try the system out. We just need a adventure. We need a place to do that. I was probably.
I would
gonna-
like to be surprised.
I
Okay.
guess for me, yeah, I'm fine with being surprised as well. I'm just thinking like narratively, what would make sense for a group of archaeologists?
Sure, that's a good point.
So like, because I mean with 5e, it's nice because there's no expectation of things really making sense in a linear fashion. But if we're gonna try to stay true to this, like, why would 5 archaeologists be at an ostrich farm, Sean? For the love of God.
To get the hidden egg there that was a Fabergé egg that went missing from Russia right around the time the Romanov family was finished off and Anastasia
I'll
went
let you
missing.
bring Russia into my campaign. I'm not letting you bring it into this one, Sean.
Well, then maybe you need to slow down so you're not Russian, damn it.
Okay. So yeah, no, that's just my one thought. And then
All
also like, yeah, that's right.
Okay, so Caleb, what do you think? Adventure.
I'm
ideas.
I'm down for whatever. I have no preference.
I have an idea, but Lane and Steve, do you all have any like? I've always wanted to do this particular adventure. Like, do you have like a thing, and you're like, I wanted to do that one.
Nothing comes to mind. I'm pretty open.
I think it's going to be before the Lost City. I think that's going to be the module, because that's basically a portal in Felsane's Tower leads into a desert land, and there's a pyramid there, and they're like, get to it, go in that pyramid, figure out what's going on in there, archaeologists. That's basically
Sounds
it.
great. I love it.
Okay.
I like it.
Some
All right.
classic dungeon crawl nonsense.
Yeah, it's
What could go wrong?
classic dungeon crawl nonsense. That's exactly right. I'm gonna
I would
try to
never-
like limit my prep and see how that goes. Like, I'm gonna try to like keep it simple and see how that.
It's a hoot.
Oh, you've done before
I love that. That's most of my stuff. Is I have like
TSR.
3 or 4 quick notes, and
Hmm.
after that, it's just a yeah.
I'm gonna try.
Like I've got a skeleton.
So
Written
you
out,
meant
but-
about your level of prep you're looking forward to doing.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep it real simple for this part. The next part I already have done, and then in the meantime I'm gonna be. Well, anyways, I won't go any further than that. All right. Rules and classes. So real quick, house rules. Max hit dice. Let's talk about how you die and if you can die. This game is extremely non-lethal for an OSR formula. Right off the bat, levels 1 and 2, max hit die. So thieves and magic users get 8 hit points, and I don't know the rest, but it's a lot. And what the intention behind that is, unless you're facing a monster that's like more than 3 hit die above you, or 2 at least, or gravity, you are probably not going to die in one go. Nothing's going to happen where it's just like, oops, there goes that character you worked
I'm
on.
not gonna get killed by a flying book.
You're probably not going to get killed by a flying book. Great example.
Twice.
It was worth it, though.
Probably.
Yeah, you ended up with. I was gonna say Rincewind, but that's who he was based off of. I can't remember what the character's name was.
The first 2 levels in this danger room of B4, if you die, they will be able to drag your body back to Pernval City and revive you. And there will be some bad thing that happens as a result of that, but you're not going to be dead. Death and dying. Multiple options. First of all, you have a luck stat. You have a 7th stat that you're going to roll 3d6 for, and you can burn it to add it to anything you want. Anything you want. But for most of you, when you burn that luck, it's gone. It's gone. and unless you have a halfling, which we'll talk about a demi-human here in a second because one of you is a demi-human. Sometimes I will call for a luck check. If I call for a luck check, it's because something is really, really matters a lot, and I want to have like an absolutely chaotic roll. So if you've burned your luck down to 5 left, you have to roll a d20 and get below a 5. And that's how luck works. But you can burn it in order to not allow the dragon to kill you. You can say, well, I burn luck to increase my save versus dragon's breath. And, you know, and then another one is anytime someone reaches you in combat, they can attempt a wisdom check. If you're somebody like a ranger or an elf, you can do it at advantage. And if they pass the wisdom check, you might be unconscious, but you won't die. Third, anytime someone reaches the character and they roll them over, you can do a luck check then and there. And if you pass the luck check, you're not dead, but you're unconscious. And then lastly, anyone that has a spell slot can expend that spell slot to stabilize a character. If they're a cleric or a druid, if there's somebody that would even reasonably have healing magic. If all that happens and you fail any of that, like there's none of that's left, you're dead. But I think that's a lot. But if you are unconscious and at 0 hit points, and you don't receive either medicinal or magical healing right away, you get a permanent scar. You roll a 1d6, and you start at strength and you go down, and you get a -1 permanently to your big attribute number. And you get a scar that you can decide what that looks like. You know, what does it look like when you have a -1 to charisma? The exceptions to this is if you're facing a monster 2 hit die bigger than you. Like if you're facing like a titan and it can like take a whole piece of landmass and throw it in the air, none of this is out the window. It could kill you. You know, so you need to make the choice to be like, maybe I shouldn't mess with that, right? Like it is still lethal. The other option is if there's some sort of severe trauma that's just obvious, like you fall in a chasm 200 feet. It doesn't matter how much luck you have, you're not going to survive that. There's no resurrection in this game. So, luck. I already talked about luck, how you can use it. Wild roll. Big purple D30. Once per session, a character can ask to use a D30 instead of whatever you're using. I can adjust the math if it's a D6 roll or whatever, but primarily it's like an attribute check or an attack. You'd say, all right, I want to use the D30 for this one. I might make that like once per the whole group, because there's not a lot of rolling. So it could be that almost every roll is a D30. So I'll revisit that if that happens. Shield shall be splintered. If you have a two-handed weapon or a shield, you can sacrifice, if it's a shield, you can sacrifice it, the amount of AC to stop the blow, or if it's a weapon, you can use the damage and roll it to see, which is the same as the parry action in OSE Advanced Fantasy, but you can sacrifice your weapon. You can always push your roll in this game. Basically, if you find a way to be clever, help someone, or use the environment, I would either call for advantage, disadvantage if it's like a big thing, like an advantage on the roll. If it's not a big thing, then you push it up to the higher die. So instead of a D20, it'd be a D24 or a D16 if it's an attribute check. I'm using all the rules from OSE Advanced Fantasy. They're like, let's see, Advanced Fantasy. Oops, that's not it. Where's it at? Crap, I don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. Player's Tome. Combat. They're primarily combat rules, but there's some interesting ones. Combat. Where's that? Adventuring Combat 234. This is like Gavin Norman stuff, kind of AD&D stuff that you can do. You can... Other combat issues. You can parry. So if you have above a 13 in strength, you can act purely defensively in melee, and you can forfeit your attack, adding your strength bonus instead of your armor class. You can use splash weapons. You can charge every round. So if a character moves at least 20 feet before attacking and it's a clear run, you get a +2 to the attack, but it penalizes your AC by 1. And there's some other things like bombing, if for some reason you're in the air or on a cliff or something. But yeah, those are all the OSE Advanced Fantasy stuff. No chaotic characters. Ascending armor class is used. And now I have a question for y'all. One of you does not like the core rule mechanic of OSE. And I understand. Now, maybe, so Caleb, like, one of the things we didn't do for Dolmenwood is we didn't even talk about it, right? We went right into the game and just started, why am I rolling a d6, right? I think you said something to that effect at one point. So we can go over it and we can talk about it. We can do that during the danger room portion of the game. Why are you rolling a d6? Why am I rolling low? Why am I rolling high? For Sean, you've never played Old School Essentials. I don't know if you have, Wayne, OSE, but it's basic and expert D&D. So there are 2 core rule mechanics, same as OD&D. You have the D20, you also have a D6, right? In addition to that, sometimes you roll high, sometimes you roll low. So it's common to get that mixed up, and it's a lot of stuff. I want to offer, if there's a majority opinion that you do not like this core rule mechanic, it's okay to change it. It's a little bit of work, it's not that much. So there are 2 alternatives that I'm willing to do. One is basic fantasy role-playing games alternative, which is basically what you know from 5e. You roll a d20, try to exceed a number. You still use your d6s, you still have your saving throws. So that's one option. I set a target number in my head and you try to exceed it. You never try to roll low. It's just one thing. The other option is from White Box old OD&D, Swords and Wizardry, which is that all of you will have one saving throw number, and you only have one. So you don't have save versus breath, save versus poison, save versus this, save versus that. You just have one saving throw number, and as you level, it goes down, so it becomes easier. And then you roll a d20 to get over that number no matter what you're doing. And then I can shift that depending on how hard it is. So those are 2 alternative core rule mechanics if you do not like Old School Essentials. I know one of you likes Old School Essentials because they run it.
I'm still just good with whatever, man.
All right, and abstention.
I'm a fan.
You like Old School
I
Essentials?
got my
somewhere.
Yeah, like I know
I
you
got the
prefer
PDF
solid
here.
answers from people, but
I got the PDF. Caleb, you're outvoted. Is that okay? The other 2 core rule mechanics are not that much different. It doesn't invalidate the whole text of the book. So, you said, is that okay, Caleb? You okay with?
Yeah, it's okay. I'll just go cry somewhere, you know.
All right. Okay. Hopeless character rerolls. We'll go over that stuff later. Okay. Alternate progression. One thing I don't like about Old School Essentials, it takes forever to level. It takes forever. And you'll be staying at a level for a very, very long time. So as a fun thing, in a few hit points make a big difference in this game. So what I want to offer is, if some really amazing thing happens, like you do a backflip behind the head of a dragon and stab it in its neck and kill it, I'll be like, you get a hit point for that. And like, it'll be a feat where like you borrow from the next level. And then if you gain all of your max hit points for the next level, or let's say you get 4 and you roll a d6 for your hit points, right? And you level up. You're like, all right, I already have 4. I roll a d6 and I got a 2. Well, then keep the 4. Or if you only get 2 and you roll a 4, keep the 4. Keep whichever's better. What do you all think of that? Like borrowing from the next level. Another one is the wizards or magic users that are the wise. So for Caleb's character, I'm okay with you borrowing the spell from the next level if you can piece together the esoteric to find it. Because I don't like that either. I don't like the sense that you can't use a spell because you're like, oh, well, but I don't have enough XP. Now, finding the Esoterra being the XP should fix that, but if you find significant Esoterra and piece it together as part of your magical research and develop the spell, I'm okay with you borrowing it from the next level if it's narratively significant. Does that make sense? This alternative progression method where you steal from the next level. And what do you all think? We don't have
Is
to.
there a consequence to borrowing from the next level?
Nope.
Then I'm fine with it.
It's just that, like, frankly, if you're at level 3 in this game, you ain't gonna see 4 for a long time. So it ain't a big deal, frankly. Like, you know, like to say, oh man, you did an awesome thing, you get a hit point. And like maybe you piece together a few hit points.
Like, and especially like for the wise, it makes sense to be able to do that because like you don't just suddenly know magic; you have to learn magic.
Right. And the point
So at
is
some
to
point
tie
you're
it
going to
more
be able
to
to
the
try
world.
and cast it.
It's to make it more diegetic and less mechanical. Okay. Anyone not like it or want to like examine that? It's one of the more controversial ones I included in here. Okay. Sanctuary system. I stole it from Root. I put a chart here. Basically, you start out at 0. People aren't going to hate you. Well, they might hate you, but they're not going to automatically hate you. When you show up to a town, they're just people, and they might be friendly, but that does not mean they're going to go in a dungeon with you. And nobody's going to go in a dungeon with you. That's just not going to be a thing. So you're going to have to like hang out and get to know people and exist in the world and do things with people to build your reputation over time. And then you could eventually try to convince people to do things on a 2d6. Otherwise, they either just won't do it at all, or it'll have a hefty negative modifier. Alternatively, if you do mean things to people, they're going to hate you very quickly. And trying to convince them to do something, they're just not likely to do it. But if you do get somebody, like if you save someone's life and then like help them get out of debt and stuff, then you might end up with as high as a +4 to your 2d6 roll on a reputation. So now somebody, an average person might just be like, yeah, I owe you my life. I will follow you into the pits of hell. But again, it's tied to the world. D6 have modifiers, but you automatically fell on a 1 or 6. Okay, classes. This is the last thing, and then we're done for the night. Let's see. Here's the most important. We got a wise, bad fortune teller, so that's a magic user, right? So you're going to be a magic user that, like, your spells are flavored in such a way that they are related to seeing the future, and that's their mechanical benefit. Did I get that right, Caleb?
I believe so.
All right, I think that's that. And then the wise thief. So you can't cast spells, but I'm going to modify the use of being able to use magic scrolls. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it to where it's very hard to use them at your level. And you'll always have the effects of an urgent casting, which means you could always have a mutation or a corruption. So like you as a thief trying to use a magical scroll early on would be really bad. But later on, you know, you could do it. And then also you'll have the benefits of Esoterra, and then you're also a thief.
So you say really bad, but what I hear is hilarious. But yes, I agree.
I agree that it's hilarious. I don't.
Interesting.
Yep. Thieves, I want to offer an alternative skill system. You've not played this game before, but there's the OG skill system, which has, at the very beginning of it, you will be really bad at things. Except you do have your deed die. Oh, wait, no, you don't, because you're not an adventurer. But with these really bad skills, so like you have to roll below a 10 in order to hide in the shadows or something, right? But what I do is I say you can do an attribute check and roll your D100, okay? And then you get the better of both. But if you succeed the skill one, you're going to get the best result. So when it says hide in shadows, it's literally a guy standing there and you're able to literally hide in the shadows. It's like borderline supernatural, preternatural ability, which is not likely, especially at first level. But you can do, you're very good at hiding and sneaking and stuff, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to offer the alternative system is every single thing is a D6, and you get handed a pool of skill points. And you just take those pips on a D6, and it starts at a 1, and you add 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I've ran out of skill points. I succeed on this on a 1 through a 5 on a D6. That's the alternative. And then 2 of those you come up with. You come up with your own skills. So do you want to do it by the book, or do you want to do this alternative method?
I mean, I kind of just want to.
There's not a huge mechanical benefit to either because of the way I interpret the one by the book.
I'm just gonna go by the book, I think.
All right. For every luck check, you roll an additional die that increases 1 step for every level. So you don't get your luck back when you, but like, if you're trying to roll under your luck at level 2, I think you would roll. Thief rolls an additional die that increases 1 step for every level. What I'm trying to say there is that when you're trying to use your luck or pass a luck check, you can roll your D20, but you can also roll a D3. And I got a 2. So, you know, like I roll a D20, if that makes sense. So that's what a thief can do. Okay. Wise thief. By the book. And then I've got a demi-human. What demi-human you thinking?
Yeah. So I was looking at them.
There's some that I know they're here, but we're not going to do a gnome.
Oh,
Not yet, anyway. Sorry.
No, you ain't.
Yeah, it's bad.
I'm naturally inclined more towards dwarves or halflings.
Hobbits are
think-
wild. I don't. Did you look at halflings?
No.
Okay, they're wild. So, first of all, if you're a halfling and you're on an adventure, you have to pick a reason that makes no sense. It has to be ridiculous. Like the example I have is your relatives tell you you're getting too fat.
Yeah.
So you decide that you have to go on an adventure in order to lose some weight. You are really fussy. And you can make food for everybody and give them a +1 bonus for it every time you make the food for the group. You are an atheist. All halflings are atheists. No halfling has ever been known to kill another halfling. That has never happened before. And then I've got me lucky charms. So like for luck, you double the bonus of any luck check. So if you spend 2 luck, you get 4. And you are the only class that can give someone your luck. And they gain this benefit when you do it. So if you give somebody 2 luck, they get 4.
Oh, I'm playing a halfling. That sounds badass.
But the downside to all this is, randomly, you're going to struggle in really normal situations.
Hey,
So when you're
that's-
sneaking, suddenly the
So do I.
halfling's stomach is going to grumble really loudly.
I love narratively. I absolutely love it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Also,
I'll be a halfling.
you recover lost luck. This is the most powerful ability. So basically, I'm going to screw with you the whole time. You're going to be like Pippin, and things are going to constantly go wrong. But then you are basically a luck generator. You're also pretty useless in most regards. Like, you're not actually... You just generate luck for the party. But every night, you generate a number of luck points equal to your level. So at level 5, you'll get like 5 luck back.
Damn.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, but I also want to emphasize I will also screw with you the whole time. Like, you're a halfling who's like not really meant to be out doing this stuff.
Deal.
All right. And then the other thing about demi-humans is you can see in the dark perfectly, like predator vision. And then you and I will work together on something where there's some kind of destiny you have that's separate from the group. And I don't do this for any other archetype, but I'll do it for the demi-humans.
Okay.
Okay.
Works for me.
Halfling. Let's see, demi-human halfling.
I'll rewatch the extended edition trilogy to reacquaint myself with ridiculous hobbits.
Yeah. I have a thing that No, I can't send it to you yet, actually, because the first part of the adventure is like all about halflings. So actually, I can't send it to you, but maybe after that if we do it. I have 2 adventurers. So starting with Steve, what type of adventurer are you thinking? And there's a large array of options in OSE Advanced Fantasy. It could be a... Let me get to the... Oh, where are they? It could be a thief, a ranger, a fighter.
I was thinking a ranger or a druid. I think it said a druid can be any.
Yeah, a druid can be anything. I need to balance that. So to be clear, how it would work is multi-classing does not provide you the benefits of both. It would be like pick the benefits of which you prefer, right? So if you're a druid that can cast spells, you would not have all of the benefits of the adventurer archetype, but you would have like some. You'd have like 1 or 2. Because to me that's crazy, like to be able to cast spells and have a D die and everything else.
Okay. Yeah,
but you still can, like, and so what it would be is it would be kind of like a light multi-class where you can cast spells, but you don't gain the benefits of the other archetypes, but maybe you get the D die, which is still really powerful. You know, that's how a druid adventurer would work.
I'll go with the ranger.
Ranger, okay.
Yeah, I like that class with the OSD for sure.
I was hoping someone would pick Ranger.
If you already have your class and archetype, you can also roll 3d6 down the line. A ranger adventurer, you have advantage on every special skill check. So basically, having Steve's character in the party, you're going to want an overland travel. You're going to want to not do it when Steve has to miss that day, because he can roll his exploration check on a d6, rolling it twice and taking the better of the 2, which is pretty huge. And you can do that for foraging, hunting, tracking, anything. Trying to climb a mountain. You guys, Sean and Joel, know how I do mountain climbing, and it's the same. I haven't changed it. It's probably the most lethal monster in the game. And
Sounds more acquainted with mountain falling.
yeah, it is imminently lethal, and it is.
It was actually a high-speed earthen hug, but okay.
Yeah. And then you gain a higher attack bonus every 2 levels, which I think is pretty huge. But here's the huge downside to a ranger: you have to swear off earthly possessions. You can never possess a domain. You have to give it up. And you can never have anything more than that can be carried on your horse, in your barding, and on your person. Anything else you have to give away.
We can handle your earthly possessing for you.
And that
we can take care of that.
It can't be you can do that with treasure. So like when you guys find treasure, you can be like, guys, I can't keep the treasure. But you can't do that with like stuff. Like you can't like buy a house and be like, hey, Caleb's character want this house. You can't do that. But you can do it with treasure.
I bought this palace in my mistress's name.
And treasure is a group resource, anyways, that's divided. And then it's up to you actually at that point it's up to you what you want to do with that money. But you can't keep it.
That works really well for me because I still had no idea what to do with Nops stuff. So,
and then
terrible at spending money in this game.
Yeah, Ranger is going to be really powerful actually, so that's good. Let's see here. Ranger. And then Lane, what are you thinking?
Well, I was thinking adventurer, clearly, and I was leaning towards thief. I like the idea of him being just the dirty guy who does all the gross work that nobody wants to do, but he's very enthusiastic and wants to be helpful, but also he's just grimy and just, so I like the bad habits.
I didn't mention this, but I want to offer a character that's not on here from a different game just because I like it and I don't care. I got this new game here and I just love it so much, and there's a character that's basically like, hey, I'm a normal person and I don't actually belong here, and you could like literally be a sewer cleaner or something, and we could just pick that profession. Everybody gets a profession too, by the way, on top of all this. And like that could be your thing. You could be like a sewer cleaner, but then like your charm and enthusiasm just helps everyone. Let me see if I can find it. Have you ever seen this game, Hero's Journey?
I have not. I was actually thinking of like, you know, sewer cleaner, kind of gong farmer, kind of something.
A yeoman. So a yeoman, and I would just balance this out. Not all heroes strap a sword to their hip or tap into arcane magic. In fact, some rise from humble beginnings and have no desire to be a hero at all. Simple farmers and gardeners sworn by blood of kinship or bonds of friendship, they are instead steadfast companions, seeking no glory for themselves, instead are the heart of the party. And they join, but they otherwise live quiet lives of service, simply hoping to aid others where they can. And you have a feature called The Promise, where every day you declare someone who's your friend, and you can give them a bonus, kind of like the way bards do. And this bonus increases. And then if they get, it's like Samwise Gamgee the class. This all looks fine. I don't see anything that can't be added here, actually.
They have the same class in Monsters of the Week, Vic.
Yeah, like the mundane. Yeah.
The mundane.
Right. I've read enough. Yeah, I was thinking some sort of beggar who's just happy to have friends and not be living in shit anymore. And so he's used to being crawling around, and that was where I was originally thinking the thief skills would come in, because he's used to hiding in shadows and being silent because he's...
So you could pick. You could be a thief, and you'll gain all the benefits of a thief. Or you can use Lamentations of the Flame Princess thief rules, and you can change the thief skills into something you make up. So it could be like, I'm really good at understanding refuse. Like no matter what it is, where it is, wherever I find a refuse, I've got like a D6 die entirely dedicated to it. And you make up several of them, and then you have some of the base ones. Alternately, you can do this yeoman one. And you won't gain any of the benefits of the other classes, whichever one you pick, but you'll gain the archetype, the adventure benefits.
I like the Lamentations idea. I just don't know if I trust myself to come up with good enough skills off the top of my, So I'm kind of leaning towards something a little more set, so that I don't have to.
And you can be the by the book thief too. Like sure,
yeah,
that can be role played.
Kind of leaning towards that just because I
it's easy
understand
for me.
it.
Yeah, me too. That's less work. Okay, thief raw. Okay, so we got 2 adventurers, a ranger, a thief, 2 the wise, a thief wise, and a bad fortune teller wise, and a halfling who has no business being here. Where did you all come from? What world? Steve's Ranger. What world? I have all the worlds from Mythic Mountains. There's Mythic Earth, which is Otherworld, which is where Shay is from. Middle Earth itself. Orth, Greyhawk, Toril, Tal'Dorei, Eberron, Kryn. Orokin is the Mythic Isles. Nuon could be Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. It could be your world. It could be actual Earth.
My world doesn't have a name yet. I've kind of been keeping that intentionally vague. So,
I'll come back to you. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's a
Caleb,
tough.
actually, yours is set. Yours is Mythic Earth. You're from the Isle of Albion. Is where Shay's from. What about Sean?
I'm pretty sure that my wise rogue is going to be one of the unfortunates rescued by Felsane, hence the love of stealing and magical items.
All right, so
wherever she was from, I forgot the name of the place. But
she was from Toril.
Yes.
But she would have rescued anyone from any plane of existence. But if it's where she's from, it would be from Toril, for the Forgotten Realms.
Yes.
All right, Toril. All right, and then Joel.
It said it's from the Fae, right?
So you would be a Middle Earth would be good. Mythic Earth would be good. You would not be from something like Orth, Toril, Tal'Dorei, because you're a hobbit. You're a Lord of the Rings hobbit, basically.
Yeah.
The known world would not work at all. Mystara halflings
Right.
are crazy. Nuwan would probably work.
Which page? What'd you say? What was that one?
Nuwan, not really. Primarily Middle Earth, Mythic Earth would probably work. Or you could make one up.
Let's say Mythic Earth for now, and then I might go retcons and stuff and get it back to you.
All right. And then Steve, what do you think?
Oh, I'm either thinking Hyperborea or the Dreamlands of Lovecraftian Dreamlands. Mostly because then I can just make up random words and let's go Hyperborea. That sounds pretty
I like
cool.
That. Yeah.
Get a little bit of the Bronze Age
Do
going.
you guys know what the name of? I think that's just Mythic Earth, but it's the past, right? Like it's basically the Bronze Age of Mythic Earth. Am I crazy?
Yeah. No, I think it's the Hyperborean age, so it's like this pre. Yeah, it's prehistorical. So, yeah, something like that. It's
because all those Bronze Age civilizations like Atlantis and Hyperborea and yeah, I think that's right. Okay, but anyways, the Hyperborean age, Lane.
Well, going with the beggar thing, I was kind of leaning Moon Thrones when you threw that out, just because I know it. I like
it's good for that. Yeah,
I like that, and it fits the the guys used to living in the street and being unseen that way. So that was what I was leaning. I was also next would be Nuwan, but kind of leaning Moon.
Both of those are good. Yeah. So you thinking Moon Throne?
That's what I'm thinking. But if you would prefer, I can do Nuwan either way. But I think I'd prefer Moon Throne.
The only thing is, Moon Throne is higher magic. That's something I didn't mention. This world is low magic, high fantasy. The Hobbit. That would not prevent anybody from. Frankly, Nuwan is high magic. Frankly, like it's bonkers. So.
Well, it also is in line with the way I'm trying to redo the Moon Throne stuff, because I'm trying to take it away from the players who insist on me doing 5th edition stuff, and I'm trying to get it a little more pulpy.
Yeah.
And so that hopefully, I mean, there's still the whole issue with, monsters from other dimensions, possibly, but I'm trying to make it a little bit more grounded, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I don't think it's necessarily incompatible with what you're going for here. Although he might be from a place where he's used to horrible things in the streets. But,
so we'll go.
So that's why he's really happy to be here in some ways.
Yeah. We'll go in a circle, finish this, and then you guys will have to make your class characters. As much as I said I don't want to do this, we'll have to do it offline, if that's okay. So like rolling 3d6 down the line, and then that's pretty much it, actually. And then all you got to do is put your class features on your sheet. And then we'll have to do some work, Caleb, to kind of tailor what does a magic user look like as a failed oracle. And then maybe Lane will have to talk, and get the best out of that or something. But anyways, and then also your class, we didn't do that, Joel, but your class would be halfling. Just keep it simple.
Yeah.
So
same as OC.
Yeah, exactly. They have class not as race, but we'll just keep it simple if that's okay, because that fits the setting better for that. Okay, so Lane, we don't have character names yet either, and that's okay. You guys send me your character names. Lane, we're gonna find out how you know Caleb. So if you could please roll a d10, a d12, and another D10.
All right. Well, that's a D12. My D10 is.
And we're just going to go in like a circle.
So a D10 is that first?
Yep.
I rolled a 10.
A 10, and then a D12,
D12. I also rolled a 10.
a 10, and then one more D10.
One more D10. That one was a 3.
A 3. Okay, so you know Caleb's character because of a birth or a death. And in the process of that, you gained a fear in your life that you can't escape. And it says that you feel like they're your best friend. At least one of the two of you think so.
That's perfect.
So what happened? Was it like the birth of someone, the deaths of someone, and who? And then like, and Caleb, you can chime in too, if you want. And then what is the thing that you fear now that you've gained?
So yeah, what is your character again?
I'm the crazy fortune tellery
Gotcha.
magic using dude.
It's easy for me to a death maybe because of a death. I don't know, like somebody like just your. I don't know. Did you predict somebody's death or somebody died very randomly and I was like, holy crap, what just happened? I don't know.
Someone they predicted.
For some reason, in my head, my first thought was like, somehow there's the equivalent of a piano fell on a guy randomly on the street and it was right in front of me, like 2 feet away, and then, like, so now I have a fear of falling objects or something along this. Maybe a little more tailored to the setting, but
Fear of falling objects. That's a very good thing to be afraid of in this setting.
because something randomly just totally wiped out a guy like inches from me. And
So maybe,
somehow-
like, so Caleb, what did you predict? Did you predict that someone else would die and they would live, or I mean, what is it that you predict that would make them think that you're their best friend?
don't eat a sandwich on a Tuesday, and then I almost ate a sandwich, and the guy who bought the sandwich got
Yeah, Caleb, what
wiped
is your
out.
terrible prediction that
Something.
just where the clock actually was on the, was right once a day kind of thing?
Gosh, it's this. To be honest, I kind of loathe this form of backstory generation because it's just so spot putting,
Collaborative
and
storytelling.
organic. What did I predict that would make
Make Lane's
someone my best
character
friend?
the-
Yeah, I imagine just like sort of kind of an ill will for coming. So if he's begging, perhaps he's begging on the side of the street, and I'm like, how you maybe try the other side of the street today, and like a carriage just comes careening through and sort of wastes the other side. Not necessarily like a dark lethal encounter, but it's just like, ooh, maybe I should stick around that guy.
Yeah.
The one time his character will be correct.
Yeah, and then that on the side of the street you're on, something fell and crushed someone, killed them, instead of Lane.
like
Now you're bound by this. You think he's your best friend ever. Okay, Caleb's character, you would roll a d10, 12, and another d10.
Great, love it.
And this will be how you know
What were those
Joel's
numbers
character.
again?
a d10, a 12, and a 10. Got a 1, a 6, and a 6.
Got a 616.
616.
616. A 6 on a D10, a 1 on a D12, and a 6 on a. That's another D12. That's supposed to be a D10, right? Or D.
Yeah, D10, 12, and 10.
Okay, then 6, 1, and 5 on the
6, 1, and
second
5.
D10.
Okay, so it says with Joel's character, you become involved with the people of Paranval City without the city knowing, gain an ally in the city. So I'm going to put that, gain an ally. You gain something from the table. I'm sorry, I did this anyways. I think you should always gain something from the table. It's more interesting. And it says a new relationship. So what happens is you and Joel, who is Joel is a halfling, something happens where you gain an ally in the city of Paranval. And it results in you gaining a guilt. And then lastly, it's related to a trial that you both failed. Is it because that you lied? Did you both lie on a trial to gain your mark of Adventure of Paranval, and now you carry the guilt of that? Like, what is it? But you both have an ally that you gain in the city, and now Caleb's character carries a guilt about it. And it's related to a failed trial. What do you think? Joel, you can hop in too.
I think it would make sense for my character to lie or cheat on his mark. Not in a malicious way, but just in like a, I know what I'm doing, I'll take your stupid test. And then maybe Caleb's character joined in or was convinced by my character, but now feels bad about it, which my character does not.
Or maybe mine was the orchestrator of the lie, and then I strung you along, and now I feel guilty because you're just this little halfling, and look what I dragged you into.
Or we're just to clarify, the statement "you're just this little halfling" is your character's take on my character.
Yes.
He's a wild, unpredictable mess in reality who is very capable. He played along with your scheme because it seemed fun.
Yes.
Roger that. Okay.
Halflings are not mischievous or unpredictable or fun. They're like very unfun. They're like fussy and fat, and they don't like to walk very far.
Oh,
They're
okay.
like hairy babies.
They are really.
Oh, you misled me with your statement regarding Pippin.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, like they're just like really lazy and fussy, and they don't really want to get up too much. And for some reason you're doing this. And anyways,
Bungo Dewfoot is my character's name. If you want to write that down, Bungo Bungo, Dewfoot Dewfoot.
Regret everything. We're in the last 5 minutes.
I'm gonna make you.
I can't say it out loud.
Bungo.
Joel.
Yes, sir.
A D10, a D12, and a D10 for Sean's character.
A D10, a D12, and a D10 for Sean's character.
Yeah.
Oh, where's my dice roller? All right. D10. 1.
1.
D12. 4.
4.
And then a D10 for Sean's character.
Yeah.
Another 1.
Another 1. Okay, so you had a moment of weakness where you either left someone in a group to perish, etc. You automatically gain a guilt. So I'm sorry, the D12. You automatically gain a guilt.
Okay.
And then it says your blood relations of the same world. I don't know if that's going to work, though. I think you're going to have to re-roll that one. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Sure. The D10 or the D12?
D10.
3.
3. Okay, it says you're best friends forever. At least one of you thinks so.
Me and Sean's character,
Yeah.
I feel like he's the one that thinks that.
probably.
And I probably, with my masterful thieving deceit, have led him on just in case I ever need him for something.
What was
Like, organs.
Joel? What was your halfling's moment of weakness that led you to a guilt?
Moment of weakness. He was traveling with some other halfling friends, and they were not on a grand quest or anything. They were traveling.
Which is what they call it when they like go 2 shops over to get like some tea.
Yes. But for some reason they had brought. Yes. So they were traveling. And he was traveling with his friends, and he saw a pie on a windowsill, and he went to grab that pie, but in the action of trying to grab that pie, tripped and fell into a structural support on a building, and it collapsed the building on one of his friends.
What in that would have made you feel like Sean's character was
Guilty.
your best friend?
I think what in that experience would have made me feel like Sean's character was my best friend.
Actually, you know what? It can be different. Why do you feel Sean's your best friend?
That's a good question. Why do I think Sean's my best friend?
He somehow saved the pie.
That's all.
I think-
Yeah,
I think-
just
I
save the
think
pie,
one-
Yes. That's great. Go ahead, Joel.
I think-
Yeah.
I think one time Bungo was standing there, and he was walking through the town square and accidentally stepped on Sean's character's foot, and so Sean's character like hip checked him and shoved him off of his boot, or her boot, I assume, Sean. And
If to assume that.
and it just coincided with there was an osprey flying high up above and dropped a large bass from the heavens, and you shoved Bungo out of the way, and where Bungo had been standing, a large heavy fish went splat on the ground, and so you knew you were just getting this dumb halfling off of your pristine boot. But Bungo to this day believes that you willfully saved his life.
Lots of falling objects.
I was gonna say,
Stuff
so I can
Okay,
justify
well,
in
so-
my fear. It sounds like, and that halfling friend of yours that got demolished by the building might be the guy that I saw die. That makes me think Caleb's a fucking master fortune teller.
So
Because
just,
I saw
just
that-
make
Ca-
sure I-
Caleb's
Flat
character
thing, flat
actually
thing.
accurately predicted the fish incident, but no one cares.
Yeah.
it's the only time he will have been accurate. I'm sure. Just let me
My
make sure I
friend's
got
name
all this
who's-
though.
my
So
friend's name who died was Doobie Pipeweed. That was his name.
of course it is.
So why?
I will tell everyone that Doobie Pipeweed did not adequately pay his fortune teller. This is why you do not stiff your oracles.
So
Mhm.
Bungo believes we are BFFs because
Mhm.
I hip checked him for stepping on my foot, unintentionally saving him from being fish slapped by bass rain from a passing osprey.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got all that.
I would like to observe that Joel is uncomfortably good at this.
Yeah, he's very good at this. This is why I hired him. He's very
You should
good
see him
at
in
these.
person; it gets even better.
Collaborative storytelling. So we're out of time. That's okay. The next session, I will try to prepare B4 and Parenval City to explore. In the meantime, before that, we'll finish the last 2 connections, which I believe are Sean to Steve, and then I believe Steve goes to Lane. Those are the last 2 connections. And in the meantime, you guys got to roll your characters. Does anybody not have the book or not? Does anybody need help with that?
I
What
just
book
have
are we
the-
talking about?
So for your character, because you are a magic user, you will only need the basic text of Old School Essentials, the free one, the same one you use for Dolmenwood, and then we're going
Yeah, I
to
got
change
that
your
line around
spell
somewhere.
to flavor it to being an oracle. Every spell is going to be related to that. And then anybody else need the book or like need help
I
creating character?
probably don't know which book I need to use.
Okay, so Sean.
I've just got that like 20-page document on the evening lands that you sent. That's all I've got.
Joel, I'll give you the text. And then does everybody else have Old School Essentials? And then
I've
you
got-
have what you need for the class, for your classes. You would just add the features from your archetype, right? So
I've got this.
we'll have our characters ready for next time. You guys also send me, if you have character art you want to use, please send that to me and your name and your character sheet with your archetype stuff. So I need that before next time. And then we'll do these last two connections and we'll get started with Before the Lost City from Parental City. And that's the end of the session. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late.